And today we are taking you to the 9/11 memorial pools. It's been 22 years since the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001, and this year we are going to capture each and every name around the pools, each and every victim of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. If you lost a loved one or even loved ones on 9/11, please feel free to share their stories in the comment section below. If you're here to learn more about 9/11, then stay tuned. As we are going around the North and South Pool, we are going to share a couple of insights and also victim stories. If you find this video to be informative, please like it and also make sure to subscribe to our channel. It would really mean a lot to us. And with that, let's get started. So here you can see a yellow rose for Christopher James Hanley. And it's a really sad story actually, because Christopher did not work for an employer at the World Trade Center. He actually worked for a company at Rockefeller Center and only attended a conference at Windows on the World. And Windows on the World was a dining/entertainment venue on the 106th and 107th floor of the North Tower. And Christopher was at the 106th floor when American Airlines Flight 11 hit the North Tower. Christopher was only 34. To give you some more information about American Airlines Flight 11, American Airlines Flight 11 originated from Boston and was ultimately hijacked and hit the World Trade Center, the North Tower, at 8:46 between the 93rd and 99th floor. The North Tower then ultimately collapsed 102 minutes later at 10:28. Both towers, the North and the South Tower, had 110 stories. But in pictures, the North Tower always appears a little bit taller, and that's because of that gigantic antenna that was on top of the North Tower. To give you a better idea of where we are right now, we are currently making our way around the North Pool. We are also going to visit the South Pool in a video that will be published next week, so make sure you subscribe to get a notification once we publish the video. For now, we are staying at the North Pool, and around the North Pool you will find all the names of the victims that died in the North Tower of the World Trade Center. And those are 1,470 victims, 1,470 lives lost in the North Tower on September 11, 2001. What you can also find at the North Pool are the names of the 6 victims that died during the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, and also the 87 names of the victims that were on American Airlines Flight 11. And as I mentioned earlier in this video, American Airlines Flight 11 was the flight that hit the North Tower. As you can see in this video, it's really calm, quiet, not a lot of people, but that's only because we went there quite late. The memorial closes every day at 8 p.m. and we went there around 7:30, and we did that on purpose because we knew there wouldn't be a lot of people, so that was an opportunity for us to capture all the names. But usually throughout the day there are quite a lot of people, especially at the corners of the pools, because you can get quite good pictures there. But if you prefer to have a quiet moment, then we would recommend to go around to visit the memorial around 7 p.m. And don't forget, visiting the memorial pool, it's free. So you don't have to pay any entrance fee. You don't have to buy any tickets in advance. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the North Tower, and as I mentioned earlier, the North Tower always appeared a little bit taller because of the antenna on top of it, but in fact it was a tiny bit taller, but we are only talking 6 feet, but still it led to the North Tower being the tallest building in the world until 1973. It was then surpassed by the Willis Tower in Chicago. The official name of the North Tower was actually One World Trade Center. It was only known as the North Tower, Tower 1, or Building 1, but its actual name was One World Trade Center, which was also the building's address. And the World Trade Center complex was so large in size that it had its own zip code. The zip code was 10048, and that zip code is not being used by the new World Trade Center anymore. At the time of the attacks, the North Tower had quite a few tenants, and as I mentioned earlier, American Airlines Flight 11 hit the North Tower between the 93rd and 99th floor, and when looking at the tenants list, Marsh and McLennan Companies, a professional services firm, occupied most of the 93rd till the 100th floor, and that was part of the American Airlines Flight 11 impact area on September 11. Apart from the floors that were impacted by American Airlines Flight 11, again that was floor 93 to 99, as I mentioned earlier, both the North and the South Tower had a total of 110 floors. So floor 100 to 110, these floors were essentially trapped because of the impact below. And then also floor 92 was apparently also a floor that was trapped, or tenants that were trapped because of the impact just above them. So here you can see we are returning back to the corner that we missed earlier. As I mentioned earlier, the corners of the pools are quite popular because you can get quite good pictures from there. But yeah, it took us a while to get all the names of the corners. Sometimes we have to run back, but looks like we got all of them. Moving on to another victim story, we are about to approach the panel that lists Neil Matthew Dollard. Neil was born in Staten Island and lived in Hoboken, New Jersey. He worked on the 104th floor in the North Tower for Cantor Fitzgerald. And Cantor Fitzgerald occupied most of the 101st through 105th floor in the North Tower and was therefore directly above the impact zone of American Airlines Flight 11. And here you can see his name at the bottom of the panel, Neil Matthew Dollard. Neil's wallet was later on recovered from Ground Zero and returned to his family. It contained quite a few IDs, such as his social security card and credit cards. The family then donated the wallet to the 9/11 Memorial and Museum. Neil was only 28 years old. As I mentioned a couple of times in this video, the 92nd through 110th floor of the North Tower were the floors that were either directly impacted by American Airlines Flight 11 or were the floors that were trapped by the impact. So if you're wondering what the highest floor in the North Tower was where people escaped from, that was actually the 91st floor. And there is a really interesting survivor story available from Richard Anderson, who was working on the 91st floor. He immediately made his way out of the building, and during his escape, he heard and felt the South Tower collapse. Fortunately, he made it safely home to his family, who initially thought he would never make it. On September 11, a lot of people were calling their loved ones to tell them about what had happened or to update them on the situation at hand. Some were able to get through, others never reached anyone, but may have left voice messages. And that's what happened with Brian Nunez. Brian was 29 years old and an office manager at Cantor Fitzgerald on the 104th floor. And Brian tried to reach his brother Neil, but Neil never picked up the phone because he just got home from a night shift and was trying to sleep. Neil often wonders how their last conversation would have gone if he answered the phone that day. And here you can see Brian's name at the bottom of the panel, Brian Nunez. And here's also his last message to his brother Neil.
Neil, it's Brian. A plane crashed into the trade center. It's on fire, and I'm in it. And I can't breathe. Tell everyone I love them. Yes, I don't get out of here. Bye.
End of message.
Now to a story of a devoted mother, Adriane Victoria Scibetta. Adriane worked in the accounting department at Cantor Fitzgerald on the 101st floor in the North Tower. And here you can see her name on the panel, Adriane Victoria Scibetta. She was not supposed to work on that day, as she was officially still on vacation, but Adriane decided to return to the office a little earlier so she can use the remaining vacation day for Halloween with her children. On September 11, shortly before arriving at the office, she actually called her husband Charles from a cell phone and told him that, quote, "Something feels wrong today." Her World Trade Center ID was later recovered from Ground Zero. And right here, pay attention, we see Lisa, Erin, Egan, and Samantha, Martin, Egan. Those were actually sisters, and they both worked on the 104th floor for Cantor Fitzgerald. Lisa was 31 and her sister Samantha was 24 years old. On September 11, 2002, the CDC published a report on the demographics of the persons who died during the terrorist attacks. Of all death certificates filed, 77% of the victims were males and 23% were females. The median age for males was 39 years old, ranging from 3 years to 85 years, and the median age for females was 38 years, ranging from 2 to 81 years. Most decedents were non-Hispanic white males and females, followed by Hispanic males and females and non-Hispanic black males and females. Many victims were US residents, and only 1% were residents from foreign countries, with most victims from the UK, Canada, and Germany. We are still at the North Pole. Got a little bit darker by now. You can see behind the names, lights are now popping up. It's really nice. And in case you were wondering, both the North and South Pole, they are at the exact place where the towers once stood. And here in the lower right corner, you can see Wendy L. Small. Wendy was 26 years old and she worked as a secretary for Cantor Fitzgerald. She was hired for that position 2.5 years prior to 9/11, and she left behind her son Tyreek. The impact of American Airlines Flight 11 into the North Tower was only captured by 2 cameras. A webcam in Brooklyn, which took pictures of Lower Manhattan every 4 seconds, and the most widely known and clearest footage from a French producer team. The crew was supposed to capture the day-to-day life of a New York firefighter on that day, which then turned into an intimate 9/11 documentary. Initially, nobody understood the gravity of the situation, and that may be related to the 1945 Empire State Building crash, where a B-25 Mitchell bomber, a much smaller plane, accidentally crashed into the north side of the Empire State Building between the 78th and 80th floors, killing 14 people. However, as we now know, 9/11 was not an accident. But let's listen to an early news report from September 11, 2001 to see news agency's first impression of the attacks.
It's 8:52 here in New York. I'm Bryant Gumbel. We understand that there has been a plane crash on the southern tip of Manhattan. You're looking at the World Trade Center. We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. We don't know anything more than that. We don't know if it was a commercial aircraft. We don't know if it was a private aircraft. We have no idea how many were on board or what the extent of the injuries are right now. We have, I understand, an eyewitness on the phone right now. Sir, good morning. This is Bryant Gumbel. Could you give us your name?
Yeah, my name is Stuart.
Stuart, where are you right now?
I'm working at a restaurant in Soho.
All right, so tell us what you saw, if you would.
I was waiting at a table and I literally saw it seemed to be like a small plane. I just heard a couple noises. It looked like it bounced off the building, and then I just saw a huge ball of fire on top, and then the smoke seemed to simmer down. And it just, a lot of smoke was coming out, and that's pretty much the extent of what I saw.
Up next, we are going to share the story of 41-year-old Thomas Henry McGinnis, who was a trader for car futures on the 92nd floor of the North Tower at the time of the attack. His wife Ileana shared that he only went to the World Trade Center that day for a meeting, but was otherwise working at a different location in Manhattan for car futures. You can see the name right here, Thomas Henry McGinnis, at the bottom of the panel here. On September 11, he called his wife at 10:18, sharing the disastrous condition of the 92nd floor and expressed his concerns about not surviving and that he could see people jumping from the floors above. 2 minutes before the North Tower collapsed, the line went dead. It was the last phone call from the North Tower. Now we are getting closer to the panel that lists Jim Gartenberg. Jim, a 35-year-old commercial real estate salesman, was on the 86th floor of the North Tower when the plane struck the building. It was his last day of work at Julian Chase Dudley, after he accepted a new role at another firm. That morning, Jim was in contact with several family members and friends up until the building collapsed. And here you can see his name at the bottom of the panel, James M. Gartenberg. The loved ones that Jim called remember a scared Jim sharing that quote, "I'm trapped and I can't get out." But there is also a call from Jim to WABC available where he appears brave and calm. Let's listen to it.
World Trade Center 1, and it's not was. I am here, and I'm stuck right now.
Now, are you above, Jim, or below?
I have no idea. I have no idea where the plane hit. It's my understanding that it's a plane.
Jim, there are two planes. One went into one tower, one went into the other tower. What do you see around you? I mean, are you in smoke? Are you in fire? I mean,
the first thing that I want to make clear is that I'm stuck on the 86th floor. A fire door has trapped us. Debris has fallen around us, and part of the core of the building is blown out.
How many people are with you, Jim?
I'm with one other person, and I'm told that people are aware of this. I'm on the 86th floor on the east side of the building facing the East River.
And what time
if
did
I'm
you
on the air, I want to tell anybody that has a family member that may be in the building that the situation is under control for the moment, and the danger has not increased. So please, all family members, take it easy.
By now, we crossed into the dedicated section where Windows on the World employees and visitors are remembered. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, Windows on the World was a dining and entertainment venue on the 106 and 107 floors of the North Tower. Since escaping the tower from the 92nd floor and up was not possible, all staff members who worked that day, as well as dining guests, passed away. One hardworking employee of Windows on the World was Nancy Diaz, and you can see her name here. Now in the center upper left now, Nancy Diaz. Her name is here on that panel. And Nancy was 28 years old and originally from the Dominican Republic. She was a kitchen assistant and helped prepare the breakfast buffet on the 107th floor that day. Since she wanted to take the afternoon to prepare for an upcoming trip, she started her day at Windows on the World early at 7 a.m. Her boyfriend was also working at Windows on the World, but had the day off. She left behind a young daughter who was raised by her great-grandmother. We are now getting closer to the panel that lists the victims of the 1993 bombing attack. Much like 9/11, this was a terrorist attack and took place on February 26, 1993. The bomb exploded in an underground garage of the North Tower and was supposed to make the North Tower crash into the South Tower and make the buildings collapse. While the terrorists failed in their mission, they still killed 6 people that day, including 35-year-old Monica Rodriguez-Smith, who was 7 months pregnant. And here are their names. The next couple of panels are dedicated to American Airlines Flight 11, which crashed with 11 crew members, 76 passengers, and 5 hijackers into the North Tower at 8:46 a.m. The pilot was John Ogonowski. The aircraft left the gate in Boston at 7:59 a.m., 14 minutes behind schedule, and was hijacked around 8:14. There are many recordings available from that flight, including the voice of the lead hijacker, who accidentally sent a message to air traffic control instead of the passengers on the plane, telling everyone to stay calm as they returned to the airport. However, passengers and crew members knew something terrible was going on. Here is a call from the brave flight attendant, Betty Ong, to American Airlines to inform them about the situation at hand. The stabbed first-class flight attendants she is referring to were Karen Martin and Barbara Aristogui.
Listening in the back, the cockpit's not answering. Somebody's stabbed in business class, and I think there's mace that we can't breathe. I don't know. I think we're getting hijacked. Which flight are you on? Flight 12. And what seat are you at? Ma'am, are you there? Yes. What seat are you in? Ma'am, what seat are you in? We just left Boston. We're up in the air. We're supposed to go to LA, and the cockpit's not answering their phone. Okay, but what seat are you sitting in? What's the number of your seat? Okay, I'm in my jump seat right now. Okay. At 3R. Okay, you're the flight attendant? I'm sorry, did you say you're the flight attendant? Hello? Yes, hello? What is your name? Hi. You're going to have to speak up. I can't hear you. Sure. What is your name? Okay, my name is Betty Ong. I'm number 3 on flight 11. Okay. And the cockpit is not answering their phone. And there's somebody stabbed in business class, and we can't breathe in business class. Somebody's got mace or something. Can you describe the person that you said someone is what in business class? I'm sitting in the back. Somebody's coming back from business. If you can hold on for 1 second, they're coming back. Our number 1 got stabbed. Our purser is stabbed. Nobody knows who stabbed who, and we can't even get up to business class right now because nobody can breathe. Our number 1 is stabbed right now. Okay. And our number 5, our first class passengers, our first class galley flight attendant, and our purser has been stabbed. And we can't get up to the cockpit. The door won't open.
As we were listening to Betty Ong's call to American Airlines, we crossed into another set of panels dedicated to victims that worked at the World Trade Center, the North Tower to be exact, on September 11. The following victims largely worked at Marsh and McLennan, and as I mentioned earlier in this video, Marsh and McLennan occupied most of the 93rd to 100 floors. These floors were directly impacted by American Airlines Flight 11. One of Marsh and McLennan's employees was Maynard Spence Jr., a 42-year-old construction safety consultant. Maynard actually lived and worked in Atlanta, Georgia. He was only visiting the Manhattan offices to attend a meeting in the North Tower on the 100th floor. And here you can see his name on the top of the panel, Maynard S. Spence Jr. Quite a few of Maynard's personal items were later on recovered, including his passport and a portfolio that contained notes and photographs. His wife donated these items to the 9/11 Museum. Moving on to a couple more insights about the memorial itself. The build of the memorial was initiated in 2003 by the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation. They launched a competition and allowed anyone over the age of 18, regardless of their nationality, to submit a design for a permanent memorial at the World Trade Center site. Finally, in January 2004, a winner was declared. Architect Michael Arrett and landscape architect Peter Walker won with their design called Reflecting Absence. The memorial opened on September 11, 2011, 10 years after the 9/11 attacks. As we were going around the North Pole, you probably noticed a few names that also mentioned an unborn child. Sadly, 25-year-old Patricia Massari, who worked in the accounting department on the 98th floor at Marsh & McLennan, belongs to the group of pregnant women that died on 9/11. You can see her name here at the bottom, Patricia Ann Massari and her unborn child. What's even more tragic is that Patricia only learned about her pregnancy before she went to work on September 11. At 8:40 a.m., moments before the North Tower was struck, she was on the phone with her husband Louis to tell him that she got another pregnancy test kit to confirm the results of the test she took in the morning. And right here in the upper right corner, you can see Edna Cintron. She was 46 years old and worked for Marsh & McLennan as an administrative assistant on the 97th floor. Edna is also known as the waving woman or hole woman. This is because she's believed to be in a picture that shows a woman waving from a gaping hole created by Flight 11 and gasping for air. Edna left behind a daughter and her husband William, who later on donated her gold engagement ring to the 9/11 Memorial Museum. We also wanted to share the story of John Richard Grabowski, a 33-year-old vice president for technology information at Marsh & McLennan. You can see his name right here at the bottom of the panel, John Richard Grabowski. He only started his job a week prior to the terrorist attacks. His wife, Erica, donated his personal weekly planner to the 9/11 Memorial Museum to preserve John's philosophical reflections, personal life, and hobbies. And that completes our trip around the North Pole. All of these victims that were captured on the panels around the North Pole died in the North Tower of the World Trade Center on September 11 and during the 1993 World Trade Center bombing attack. We hope you enjoyed the stories and background information we shared. Subscribe to our channel to receive a notification for our South Pole documentary, which will be published next week. Thanks for watching and see you soon.